Hi children, this tutorial is about DTD, document type definitions. So what is document type definition? So a document type definition is a set of structural rules that can be declared, and it specifies a set of elements and attributes that can appear in a document, the XML document, and how and where these elements and attributes can appear. And it can also give information about the entities that can be used in a XML document. And the thing is that not all XML documents need a DTD, but we can use this DTD to define or declare the structural rules associated with an XML document. And the use of the DTD is related to the use of external style sheet that we have used in XHTML documents. Why? Because when we use the external style sheet, we can have a uniform style over the collection of documents. Similarly, in DTDs also, we can define same tags and definitions for a collection of documents or for a collection of users. That means the document can have consistent and uniform structure as well as the same set of elements and attributes. And a document must be tested against this DTD to determine whether it conforms to the rules of the DTD. For application programs also, it is very much necessary. We have to test it against the DTDs that have been defined. Then only we can have application programs that work well with this data. So a DTD can be embedded in the XML document whose syntax rule it describes, in which case it is called internal DTD, and DTD can be stored in a separate file and we can use those rules in our XML document. Then it is called an external DTD. And external DTDs allow use with more than one XML document. So external DTDs are preferable. So a group of users can define a DTD for a particular kind of data, and they can use that DTD, which imposes structural uniformity across all groups of documents. And one more reason is that is a DTD is different. It's a different file than our XML document. That is, XML has its own structure and DTD has its own special structure. So it is better to avoid the different notations appearing in the same document. And a DTD with an incorrect declarations can have widespread consequences, because we have to fix those errors or bugs in a DTD. So fixing the DTD and all the copies of it is the first step. Then after that, we have to test all the documents that uses this DTD definition against it, and can be modified to conform to the changed DTD. And changes to the associated style sheets are also necessary. So we are going to see how a DTD is defined, or the syntactic structure is defined as declarations in a DTD. So we know that DTD is a sequence of declarations. So those declaration has the form, the format is given here within angle bracket, exclamation mark, and you have to specify the keyword. And we have four possible keywords: element, which is used to define the tags; ATT list, used to define the tag attributes; entities for entities; and notation is used to define the data type notations. And in this tutorial, we are going to see how we can define an element, attribute, list, and entity. So we are going to see how we can declare the elements. So the element declaration of a DTD have a form that is similar to the rules defined as context-free grammars in Backus-Naur form. So BNF is used to define a syntactic structure of programming language. Similarly, a DTD describes the syntactic structure of a particular set of documents. So each element declaration in a DTD that specifies the structure of one category of elements. One category of elements. So the declaration provides the name of the element along with the specification of the structure of that element. So usually that structure of that element is specified as a tree. So an element can be considered as a node in that tree, either a leaf node or as an internal node. So if the element is a leaf node, its syntactic description is its character pattern or its type. If that element is an internal node, its syntactic description is a list of child elements, each of which can be leaf node or internal node. So the form of the element declaration is given here. Exclamation within angle bracket, exclamation mark, and you have to specify the keyword element in capital letters, and you can give an element name here, and within parentheses you have to specify that structure of that element or list of names of child elements. So here an example, memo, that is the element name, and its structure or the child elements of memo is from, to, date, RE and body. So this is the tree structure of that element. So one more example, here also exclamation mark element person, within parenthesis you are specifying parent plus age, spouse, sibling, star, etc. So the meaning is that person is an element having the following child elements: one or more parent elements, plus means one or more parent elements, one age element, and possibly a spouse element, and 0 or more sibling elements. That is the meaning of star. And the leaf node of DTD specify the data type of the content of that parent node. That is the element. So the content of an element is type PC data. The type of the content of element is PC data. PC data means parsable character data. It is actually a string of any printable characters except less than, greater than, and ampersand sign. And two other element types are there, empty and any. Empty type is similar to our XHTML IMG element because that specifies that element has no content. And any type is used when the element may contain any content. So the form of the leaf element declaration is like that. Element name, within parentheses you can specify the hash parsable character data as type. And we are going to declare the attributes. So the attributes of an element are declared separately from element declaration, and the attributes must include name of the element to which the attribute belongs, the attribute name, its type, and some default options. So the format is like this: within angle bracket exclamation mark, ATT list keyword, and its element name, the attribute associated to the element name, then attribute type and default option. If more than one attribute is to be declared for a given element, the declaration can be combined like this: attribute list, and these are all the attributes related to this particular element. So element name is specified with that list of attributes with their type and default options. So there are 10 different attribute types, but we are going to see the CData type. This is a character data, string of characters which does not include less than, greater than, or ampersand. So the default option in an attribute declaration can specify some values, either actual value or the requirement of the value of that attribute. So these are the, so this is the table which describes the possible default options for attributes. First option is a value, which can be given within double quotes, which is used if none is specified for an element as attribute, and then hash fixed value. So the quoted value can be given in double quotes, which every element will have and which cannot be changed. That is the meaning. Then hash required. Here no default value is there. Every instance of this element must specify a value. Then implied, here also there is no default value. The browser chooses the default value. The value may or may not be specified in an element. So this is an example DTD, attribute list specification. ATT list, airplane is the element to which we are going to attach the attributes. Places, engine, price and manufacturer are the attributes associated with the element airplane. Places is type CData, and we have given a value here. So if there is no value is specified for this particular attribute for this particular element, then it will use this value as this value 4. And then again engine type, it's also CData. We have to give some value for engine type. That means hash required is the meaning of hash required means no default value is given. You have to specify some value. Then price is again CData. Implied, some implied, browser can choose the default value here. Manufacturer again CData. Fixed value, that value is specified within parenthesis. So Cessna is the fixed value for this particular attribute. So this is the valid XML element. You can, if there is a DTD with attribute list declaration like this, you can use elements like this in your XML document. That is airplane, that is the element name. Places attribute, that is equal to 10. You have to specify value for places because default value is 4. So you have specified that value. Then engine type equal to jet. Engine type is required. Engine type is required. So you specify it as jet. Then end of that particular element. So attributes that include the hash fixed in the DTD may or may not specify in particular instance of elements. And then we are going to see how to declare entities. Entities are entities can be defined in an DTD so that they can be referenced anywhere in our XML document. If so, they are called general entities. That means all predefined entities are all general entities that can be referenced in your XML document. But entities can also be defined so that they can be referenced in their DTDs itself. If so, they are called parameter entities. So the form of the entity declaration is like this: exclamation mark entity keyword, within square brackets you are giving a percentage sign, it's optional. Then entity name, entity value can be given. So a optional percentage sign is there, meaning is that if this percentage is present in an entity declaration, it means it is a parameter entity. So we are going to see an example. Your document includes a large number of references for the name John Fitzgerald Kennedy. So if so, you can specify entity JFK whose value is John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And in your XML document, wherever you are going, you want to use that that name, I mean John Fitzgerald Kennedy, you can specify reference like ampersand JFK. Wherever you put this reference ampersand JFK, it is replaced with its corresponding entity value. So when an entity is longer than this word, such as for example, if you are dealing with a technical article and its main part is defined outside the DTD, so in such cases this entity is called external text entity. and the form of declaration of an external text entity is entity, entity name, system, and then file location. Here system and entity are the keywords. So the keyword system specifies that the definition of this particular entity, that is the part of that text, is defined in a separate file which is specified as a string, whose location can be specified as a string following the keyword system. So we are going to see a sample document type definition. It's a booklet of ads for used airplanes. So in this case, the DTD describes the form of the booklet and it describes each of its ads. So this is our DTD. XML version is given as an instruction as first in the first line. Then we are going to define some elements. So here planes for sale is the root element whose structure is add plus one or more occurrences of the element add. The structure of add is given here. Within parentheses, some child elements are specified like year, make, model, etc. And then comes the element year. It is a leaf noun, so you can specify the type of this element. It's a parsable character data. So likewise, you have defined up to state, and then you're going to attach attributes to this elements, especially to the element seller. Font is the attribute name whose type is CData, which is required. You have to specify that font number whenever you define or declare, whenever you define seller element in your XML document. Then email is also CData. It's an attribute of seller. It is implied. So the browser can choose its own some values if it is not specified. Then entities are specified here, C, P and B for some values. Then we know that external and internal DTDs are there. If the DTD is included in the XML code, whose rules are going to be described in DTD, then you have to use this tag, within angle brackets and exclamation mark, you have to specify doc type and then your root name, and within square brackets you can specify the rules. So the structure of the planes XML document with DTD included in its own XML document is given here. XML version and then doc type. Your root element is planes, and this the DTD for planes, and then closing angle bracket. So when DTD is in a separate file, then the XML document can refer this separate DTD file using doc type declaration in its second line. This has the following format: doc type, XML document, root name, that is root element of your XML document, then system, it's a keyword, then DTD file name. So for the planes example, if the DTD is stored in the file named planes.dtd, then you can use this declaration in the second line to access that DTD. That's doc type, planes for sale, that is our root element, system is the keyword, planes.dtd is the DTD where all the declarations are specified. So this is an example XML document which uses the DTD specified in this file. So this is our planes.dtd. We are going to use this DTD in this XML document. So XML version and then doc type is specified. Planes for sale is our root element, system, then planes.dtd. DTD is specified, DTD file is specified within double quotes. Then planes for sale, that is the root element, Then within that you're going to specify the ads. One or more occurrences of ads must be there. So the first ad, those elements are all specified along with their attributes and all. This is the second ad. Seller phone number has been specified, email, etc. That's all. Thank you.